Hey 8th graders, it's Mrs. Bottemiller. Hey, we have been working so hard on our personal narratives and we are so proud of the work that you've done. Now today is kind of an exciting day because you're going to be creating your first typed draft of your narrative. I don't know about you, but I'm always kind of excited when I can start typing a paper because it feels much more official than just handwriting. And also it looks way better because my handwriting is really kind of messy. So that's why today is kind of an exciting day. So before we get into our drafting, let's quickly revisit the work that we did last week. Remember how we worked on expressing emotions in our writing by showing and not telling? You brainstormed some really specific details about your facial expressions and your body language and actions and thoughts and words to show the emotions where you were feeling during each segment of your story. Remember your gingerbread men? You're going to need that today. So the question is, how do you go from what you have on your gingerbread men, which is kind of just a list of details, to something in your story that's smooth and sounds not weird, not choppy? How are you going to work these details about these emotions into your story so your story really is rich and full of emotion? Well, let's take a look back at Everything Will Be Okay and see how James Howe did it, and that might give us some ideas. So what feelings are being shown in these parts of the story? Okay, first, notice how he says that his mom pushes him towards the cellar stairs with the kitten dangling from one of her hands. How do you think he feels when this kitten that he so values is dangling from his mom's hand? Well, it kind of makes us think that she doesn't value it very much, whereas he does. So maybe he's kind of disgusted with his mom at that point. Now, look at the next segment. Here we're talking about facial expressions. What emotion would this detail tell us? I can feel tears welling up. Well, that detail tells us that he's probably pretty close to crying, which would mean that he's very sad, right? Again, we see from the mom's actions that she is shaking her head at the kitten, right? Again, she doesn't feel the same emotion and love for the kitten, which kind of makes him feel, dread. This story already he knows isn't going to go the way he's hoping it is going to go, right? That everybody's going to love this kitten. Here's another detail. He says, I feel in the pit of my stomach what the future of the kitten is. The feeling spreads through me like a sudden fever. And then down in the cellar, he cries so hard that his body shakes. All of those really rich details tell us that he is emotional, and we can see that he's sad and upset and probably, again, filled with dread about what's going to happen to this kitten that he feels so much emotion toward. We see how he's able to kind of insert these emotions in a smooth way. He never just tells us, I was sad, because that wouldn't convey the depth of the emotion in the same way it does when he can use his facial expressions and his words and the feelings in his body to show us what that sadness feels like. It's much more powerful. So that's what we're asking you guys to try and do, because it's going to make your story so much better. So today, guys, we're going to begin typing draft number 2. Now, your draft number 2 is going to look very different than your draft number 1 flash write. Okay? What that means is when you hold up both drafts, the draft that you wrote on that first day when we gave you 15 minutes to simply tell your story is going to look very different than what you actually type on the screen. And I don't just mean it's handwritten versus typed, or the margins are bigger, or you have a few different words here and there. We're going to see actual giant differences between how the story is being told. So you've done so many things already, so much work on this story, and you're going to be using all of it. You might have been thinking like, why are they making us do all these things? It's just writing a story. Well, now what you're going to do is incorporate all the things that you've done up until this point to create draft 2. Okay, so you're going to need your flash write, the day we first wrote down the plot of the story. You're going to need your 3 leads that we wrote, or that you wrote, and you're going to choose your favorite. You're going to need your story arcs from last week, and you're going to need your gingerbread emotions, which are either in your notebook or probably they're in your notability. So you're going to use all those tools to help you write this second draft. Okay, so how exactly are you going to go about writing draft number 2? Well, writing an entire story can be overwhelming, so we're going to chunk your story from your story arc. We're going to just focus on kind of one piece. I told my classes piece of the pizza at a time, so we can avoid kind of becoming overwhelmed by telling the whole story at once, okay? So you're going to start today by with your 3 leads that you wrote. You're going to choose the one that you think will work the best for your story and the one that will best catch your reader's attention. So go ahead, type that lead. It's probably going to be your first paragraph of your story. So then start a new paragraph. Your second step is to focus only on the event and the feelings from segment 1 of your story arc, the first piece of pizza. Use your flash write, your story, and show those emotions to really expand that segment of the story. Plan on spending about 15 minutes on just that very first start of the story. Yeah, you might have to give us a little background information. You might have to tell us a little bit about the characters, but it's okay. Now, if you think that you're finished, like you've only spent 5 minutes, you're like, I'm done, okay? Well, go back and see, where can I add more details? Where can I go back and add more feeling or emotions or details about how my body was or about another character if there's someone else in your story? So add more description, just like the ones we saw, and everything will be okay. It's okay if this segment ends up being more than 1 paragraph. That's no problem. Okay, that just tells us that you're probably adding a lot of details. Okay, then start a new paragraph, okay, and write out all the events and feelings and details from segment 2 of your story arc, okay, the second piece of pizza. So again, add description, add details, add the plot, of course, so you might start with your flash write and embellish it and make it so much better. Again, you'll spend about 15 minutes on just segment 2 of the story from your story arc, okay? Now, you're like, oh my God, but I already wrote my lead. That's probably 5 minutes. I spent 15 minutes on segment 1 and 15 minutes on segment 2. My God, this is going to take me hours to write. Well, you're going to stop there. So the only 3 things you're going to write today is your lead, segment 1 of your story arc, and segment 2 of your story arc. So you'll have your story about half done at the end of today. Well, then guess what we're doing tomorrow? Tomorrow, you're going to write out the other segments of your story from your story arc. Most of you had 2 additional segments. You had a total of 4 segments. A few of you had 5. So you're going to write the conclusion of your story tomorrow. Now, later in the week, we're going to be teaching you, how do you finish a story? That's really a hard part of a writer's job. How do you finish a story? And so we'll be teaching you how to do that and giving you some ideas. Now, where are you going to be doing all this typing? Well, in your weekly folder, you're going to see an assignment called Personal Narrative. On the top, it gives you the rubric or the checklist that tells you everything that your narrative should have. By the time you're done, it probably won't have it today, but that's okay. You're going to have it by the time you get done, and you're going to go underneath that list and start a new page and just start typing on that clean page. And then you'll just keep adding on to it and improving it. And eventually that will be your final draft, and that's what you will submit. Okay? So excited to see all your work that you get done today. Work hard, do lots of writing. Excited to see your progress. Let's do this. Off you go, gang.